Hi everyone, my name is Ming Zhu, and I'm here to tell you about my first boyfriend. Well, my relationship with him was more toxic than nuclear waste, and I'm not exaggerating. This was because my boyfriend was my master, like my boss. But let's get into the story. That day, I had a problem. At first, I learned that my sister had gangrene on her leg due to an old injury, and an amputation to the knee was required. Not only were we both very depressed, but an urgent operation was also needed, and we had no money. I took a desperate step and decided to sell my mother's gold pendant with a photograph of her and my father. It's all that was left of our dead parents. For many years, Eamon and I have been living alone in this world and taking care of each other. We started working early, and my sister had an accident at work. Her leg was crushed by a huge machine at the factory. We couldn't get compensation because she worked there illegally. My sister was registered in the hospital. We desperately tried to treat her leg for 3 months, but in the end, it was impossible to save the limb. At that time, I was lucky. I already worked as a servant in the house of the son of the former mayor of the city. They paid me well, but all the money was spent on Eamon's treatment. Naturally, against the backdrop of high costs, I couldn't postpone anything, and I was refused an advance. Everything went wrong. I carried my mother's pendant for sale on the market. It was expensive, as it was made of gold of the highest standard. As soon as I pulled it out, it was immediately stolen. I ran after the thieves, but I couldn't catch up. Out of desperation, I fell to the ground and cried until my aunt called me. This is the one who leads all the servants in the owner's house, and she ordered me to come back to the place. At the entrance, I met the owner and bowed. He looked at me and was like, "I heard you asked for an advance." "Yes, sir," I said. "Well, how much do you need?" 6 months ahead, sir." "Wow. I wonder what you'd spend all that money on. In other words, I'm not interested." Then he stood opposite me and whispered close into my ear, "I give money to girls only in 2 cases, if they're my relative or my girlfriend." I was confused by his words. I noticed that he was very drunk, and it was only 9 a.m. He offered me to take his money in exchange for a night with him. He said I was very beautiful, and he'd been staring at me for a long time. His words made me feel uncomfortable, and I gave a slap in his face, which I immediately regretted. My aunt saw this, and I was punished. All day I washed the toilets and cleaned the territory of the house without food or water. In the evening, I received a call from the hospital again and was told that my sister had a fever and needed an urgent operation. By getting a grip, I went to the owner's room and asked again for the money. Mr. Shengley hadn't sobered up yet. He got close to me again, then offered to make a deal. "I won't hide the fact that your beauty intrigues me. I've been watching you since you arrived. Do me a favor, and I'll do you one. Pretend to be my girlfriend for a while, and I'll give you the money right now." I so wanted to hit him again, but I was too scared for Eamon. So I agreed. That same night, I ran to the hospital with the money, walked my sister to the operating room, and shouted after her that I would definitely take her to Hainan Island, where her parents had promised to take her before the car accident. The operation was successful. In the morning, Eamon woke up. She was weak, but life was no longer in danger, and I was happy. I promised to come back in a couple of hours with nice food, but upon returning home, the owner was waiting for me. He urged me to quickly get ready for a meeting with his friends, where I was supposed to play my promised role. I said that I couldn't, and then he extended the terms of our pseudo-relationship for another week. For every wrong step, the interest increased. But at that moment, I didn't care. I was just glad that Eamon was alive and everything was going to be fine. I was given a few days off at my own expense. Every day, the owner was rude and reminded me about the counter. Finally, when my sister was discharged, I decided to hire a nurse for her. However, one arrived at our house suddenly. It turned out that my master hired her. I then returned to work to thank him, and he said, please, that I'd have to work and touched my neck. I agreed to go with him wherever he said, and so we went to visit his friends. All evening, I watched them. Rich, unencumbered men, acting nasty, and my master said he hooked me up in Milan where I was modeling there. He reached out to kiss me in front of everyone, and I moved away. His nasty friend asked, "Does she really disdain you that much?" And so the owner forcibly kissed me on the lips. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. We drove in silence all the way back to the house, and in the morning, I didn't want to look him in the eye as I cleaned the room. "I'm sorry about my behavior." "What? He apologized? What did I hear?" "Today you have a paid day off. Let's go." So we went home to Eamon, where the nurse was already working. "Sister, thank you so much. The nurse is making repairs to our house for my convenience. I'm so glad, and I have a new prosthesis. It's so comfortable. Soon I'll be able to wear it. Thank you so much. I'll return everything. Consider this as my apology for yesterday's kiss." And then he leaned in a whisper, although I liked it. I was embarrassed and caught myself thinking that he's not such a goat after all. But that was not all. He then handed us a magazine with a hotel flyer. "We are flying to Hainan," he said. My sister was squealing so much that my eardrums almost burst. I couldn't believe it. How did you know? "I overheard your conversation on the phone, but in general, I also need to go there on business, and you're my slave, so, well, I couldn't help but take you. And your sister's lucky there was an extra ticket." Although he hid his kindness behind callousness, it was still clear that his actions did not leave me indifferent. Well, we had a great time on that island. Everything was better than in my dreams. My sister felt good with her new prosthesis, she ate delicious food and listened to music. Then my master suddenly invited me to dance. Before going to bed, Eamon and I talked. She said that he obviously felt something for me. At first I denied it, but then I realized that it wasn't only him, but me too. "So, are you dating?" It's just for cover. How could we? He's my master. His strict father would never let him date his maid. "So what? It's just like in the movies." "No, Eamon. Everything in real life is more complicated." "You should thank him. We're leaving tomorrow. You won't be able to talk like that anymore." She was right. So I prepared an iced drink for him. He adored it, and I went to his room. The door was ajar. He was talking to someone on the phone. "Yes, Father, I told you, I will bring the girl to you. Do not deprive me of the opportunity to become a member of the shareholders. You know how important this is. Marry? Well, let's at least date, okay? Yes, she's very beautiful. No, you don't know her. She's from Milan." Those words crushed into me. So he had a plan for me, and only for the money. Is that why he did all of this? I ran to my room and didn't say a word the whole trip home. On the day of arrival, I took money from the bank and went to the owner's office, threw him an envelope, and said, "I don't owe you anything else. Here's the whole amount with interest." I wanted to leave, but he pressed me lightly against the wall and asked, "What's the matter?" My tears came back. "It's just, I got too into this role, I'm sorry, but I don't want to play anymore." "Well, you like me, right?" "That means nothing. You will never be with a poor provincial girl anyway. And yet, not everything can be bought with money, right? Did you hear something yesterday? Did you come to me? For what?" "I wanted to see you and thank you. My sister asked me to." He wanted to say something else, but then his father entered the office with an unfamiliar girl. I just put my head to the floor and quickly walked out. Overhearing the conversation outside the door, I realized that his father thought that his son was lying and brought him a girl himself. From that moment on, I just went back to work and became a servant again. We crossed paths around the house, but I didn't even look into his eyes. I refused to clean his room. And then Auntie came up to me. "It happens. The romance between rich and poor only ends well on TV. "What are you talking about?" "I have been working in this house for many years. I've never seen the owner so happy." "Well, he is with an educated rich girl now." "I'm not talking about her." "What?" She smiled at me for the first time ever and said nothing more. Another maid immediately approached me and said that the owner didn't let her into the cleaning room either, demanding that I come. I got angry and went up to him. He locked the door behind me, and I immediately went to make up his bed. The owner took my hand and asked why I was avoiding him. "My debt is paid. I can no longer play your girlfriend." "So you're saying I don't mean anything to you?" "Why do you ask? Your father has already found you a wife. Aren't you happy? Now you'll become a member of a joint stock company. Didn't you want to?" "Oh, that's what you heard? Mingju, I wanted to give you something. I don't need anything from you." I wrenched my hand away and continued to make the bed, but the owner turned me to face him and touched my head with his hand. "If you don't want me around, just tell me. Tell me, do you like me?" I was silent. "Say no, and I'll never touch you again." I couldn't answer. Instead, I burst into tears. After a couple of minutes, he handed me a box, and you won't imagine what was there. It was the same pendant that was stolen from me. I told him about the theft only once in Hainan, and he remembered. "How did you find it?" It was hard, but I tried. Wait, and what now? Well, the girl my father bought, I told him I already have Mingju. If you eavesdropped a little more, you would have heard that. I didn't eavesdrop. You spoke too loudly. The whole corridor could hear. He laughed. My boyfriend said he'd work things out with his relatives. For now, we're dating, and everything is good. Tell me, guys, did you like my story? Write your opinion about it in the comments under the video. Don't forget to like it, share the video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel.